Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In this video, we're going to take a look at the Composite Bowman. No, not that one. In fact, that's the wrong game entirely. This is about the Armenian Composite Bowman from Age of Empires 2, the new unique unit from the castle. It has a very interesting ability to ignore enemy pierce armor, which is an idea that's floated around fan-designed civilizations on the forums for years, always with the criticism it would be incredibly broken and could never be balanced. It's officially in the game now though, so we're going to take a look at it, see how its ability affects various matchups for the unit, and whether this completely turns the tables on some of the traditional archer counters. Throughout all of this, keep in mind Armenians have fully upgraded arbalesters except for thumb ring, and one of their civ bonuses also lets their lumberjacks and gold miners benefit extra from eco-techs. So Armenians are pretty well set up for the archers' resource needs already, and one of their two archery options feels like a very natural choice for the civilization. Starting off, the cost of the regular old crossbow and the Composite Bowman are nearly identical, with the same 45 gold. Though notice the Composite Bowman at the castle is a tiny bit more expensive, costing 10 more wood each. Stats-wise, it's maybe not surprising then they line up pretty well, with slightly more HP and one more melee armor in favor of the Composite Bow, with +1 attack and range for the crossbow. That one range disadvantage is pretty significant, as even after Bodkin Arrow, they're still outranged by elite skirmishers, mangonels, or regular crossbows. That said, it's the same range as cavalry archers, for example, so it's not necessarily unprecedented. Also, somewhat hidden is the regular crossbow on top of greater attack has a slightly larger bonus against spear units, so the Composite Bowman isn't a strict upgrade in all regards. Of course, it also needs a castle to create, and to offset that cost and inconvenience, they have a pretty quick 12-second creation time, dropping to 10 with the elite upgrade compared to the crossbow's 27 seconds. The feudal age archer at the range is even slower at 35 seconds, so Composite Bowmen have a bit of an opportunity to catch up, even if you start massing them later. Now, something odd you might notice about them almost right away is, unlike crossbows, their arrows move in basically a straight line, rather than the usual pronounced arcing through the air, which is especially obvious when we artificially increase their range as shown here. It might seem like a superficial difference, but it has the implication that enemy units moving in a straight line toward or away from them will almost always still be hit even without ballistics, whereas a regular crossbow has a chance of firing either too far or too close. Why Composite Bowmen fire in a straight line like this, similar to a town center, instead of a regular archer, I have no idea, and it could just be an AoE 1 reference, as that's how the unit with the same name fired in that game. Another small hidden advantage for the Composite Bow in AoE 2 is it has 100% accuracy on their shots, instead of the crossbow's 85%, giving another easy to miss advantage. Well, actually not easy to miss, technically impossible to miss, but you know what I mean. Really though, the main selling feature is clearly the armor ignoring special effect. Though note that armor piercing doesn't work on siege, buildings, or naval units. So against those, they're a low range, very low attack archer, probably doing 1 damage per arrow even when fully upgraded in many cases. Even the unique units classified as siege aren't affected, nor is the Shravamsha Rider's dodge mechanic, as just a few special cases you might run into where the Composite Bowman has a bit of extra trouble. Against other units than those mentioned though, it seems natural to wonder if ignoring armor makes up for a very low base attack of 4, and to investigate, let's start off in the Castle Age. To begin simply, against something with 0 pierce armor that has picked up no armor upgrades, Composite Bowmen deal 1 less damage than regular crossbows. Lots of players can be delayed in getting defensive upgrades for one reason or another, and in those cases, the Composite Bow will just seem like a low attack, shorter range version of the archer line, which is not a great combination. These are the sorts of units that archers are typically strongest against as well, so it might be fair to say the Composite Bowman is not as good at dealing with some of the things crossbows counter the best, such as pikemen. Of course, having 5 more HP means head-to-head they're pretty well balanced against each other, but it probably shouldn't be a surprise that with 0 pierce armor involved, the higher attack and extra range of the crossbowmen at a lower cost make it the better choice. Things start to flip though if we add even just 2 pierce armor. Examples of this would be crossbows with the armor upgrades, or knights with no extra armor, and in that case the Composite Bowman is already doing 6 damage compared to the crossbow's 5. The fact composite bows are already harder hitting gives you a sense of what's in store as we go up in armor from here. There is one small exception, which is pikemen with Castle Age armor upgrades, and when you factor in the crossbow's +3 bonus damage, they actually end up doing the same. Likewise, if you have a pikeman without any armor upgrades, the crossbow is technically a fair bit better. though this is the only unit line where bonus damage mixes things up like this. Another thing I should mention though is even with armor upgrades thrown in, crossbows are probably still better head-to-head, as even though the composite bow deal 1 more damage, the crossbow's +1 range means it takes attack move fights significantly cleaner, and the more micro you add, the more that advantage would grow. Also, very subtle but worth mentioning here is the composite bow has a slightly delayed attack animation compared to the crossbow, making it a bit more sluggish to hit and run, on top of its already shorter range holding it back in fights with other ranged units. So far, it's not looking too impressive, but now let's go up to 4 pierce armor, for example a knight with Castle Age armor upgrades. At this point, composite bowmen are suddenly doing twice as much damage, at 6 damage per shot compared to the crossbow's 3. This would be noticeable, and a modest group of say 10 composite bowmen could theoretically take out a fully upgraded knight in 2 shots, if all attacks landed. If that wasn't enough, going up now to 5 pierce armor, remember this has no effect on the composite bowman's damage, so against something like a Castle Age Eagle Warrior or Gulam with armor upgrades, a composite bowman is doing 3 times as much damage as a crossbow. Going up then 1 more to 6 pierce armor, we hit the maximum, where the crossbow is doing just 1 damage and the composite bowman is doing 6. Past this point, nothing really changes, so you're getting the same 6 times the effectiveness against elite skirmishers and rattan archers, all the way up to fully upgraded Huskarls. An obvious question then is whether skirmishers can still counter them. Looking into that matchup, not only does the composite bowman's extra HP let them take 1 more skirmisher javelin than a regular crossbowman, but they need just 6 compared to the regular 35 arrows to bring a skirmisher down. Since elite skirmishers have a bit slower firing rate, that means the composite bowman actually wins one-on-one. Of course, skirmishers are a cheaper unit, and if we balance for cost, I'd say it's a fight that could really go either way, which is not a bad result for an archer unit. This is where the composite bow's shorter range though can start to be a big deal, and if we instead patrol equal cost armies against each other from outside each other's range, it turns into a total landslide for the skirmisher, as it starts the fight much cleaner. This is with just patrolling them in as well, never mind proper hit and run, as remember the skirmisher still has an anti-archer attack bonus. Putting it all together though, basically aside from 1 less range making them questionably worse against archers, skirmishers, and mangonels, once your opponent has 2 or more pierce armor, the composite bowman is doing anywhere from 2 to 6 times as much damage as the crossbow, with a little more HP and even 1 melee armor. This is all just in Castle Age though, and now I want to talk about Imperial Age, as at least on the surface, the composite bowman seems like it might lose a bit of its edge. First of all, its elite upgrade is more expensive than the Arbalester, while giving a similar HP improvement, but critically doesn't increase its attack, whereas the Arbalester has that improved. It gives a bit of hope for opponents that the composite bowman may actually be stalling out. Personally, I don't think that's the case though, for a couple of reasons. First, remember Imperial Age gives you Bracer and Chemistry for +2 guaranteed damage. The other thing to remember is enemy units, whether through direct upgrades like elite versions or blacksmith armor, will usually raise their pierce armor by +2 or 3 when everything's put together. Where the Arbalester is being impacted by those armor increases and needs more attack to keep pace, the composite bowman's ability is already being indirectly powered up. The critical inflection point in Imperial Age with all upgrades, where the composite bowman deals more damage than a regular Arbalester, is in fact against an enemy with just 3 pierce armor. Anything over 2 and the composite bowmen are doing anywhere from 14% to 8 times as much damage per shot as Arbalesters. To give some concrete examples, against Arbalesters head-to-head as a unit with 4 pierce armor, they're dealing 33% more damage, taking them out in 5 hits while surviving 8. The Arbalester's range can make it close in practice, but if anything, head-to-head, the composite bow has a greater advantage than in Castle Age, despite no increase in its base attack. Likewise, moving up to 6 armor, for example against a Cavalier, you're looking at double the damage from composite bowmen, against a unit that can already struggle against mass archers. Jumping up to 8 or more pierce armor, the difference is almost comical, at least from an Armenian player's perspective. This is where we find the elite skirmisher though, and to revisit that very specific case, in Imperial Age the composite bowman has an advantage one-on-one, and can actually win with decent HP left. In a large group fight, I'd say there's a distinct advantage for composite bowman, more so than in Castle Age, where it was pretty much balanced. Range, of course, is still an important factor, but the point is skirmishers have to really make good use of their +1 range to win or even come close to tying. To give another example, with equal resources standing their ground, elite Huskarls will win pretty easily, as they do have an attack bonus against archers. On the flip side, with equal numbers and a bit of micro, I was able to win with composite bows. So with a critical mass and a bit of micro, it does seem possible in Imperial Age to beat some of the archer's usual hard counters, especially if you're able to use the terrain or choke points to your advantage. Of course, this is all coming down to the fact that you're doing 8 times the arbalester's damage. Now, before jumping to the conclusion that this must be broken, remember this is what they're getting to offset losing range and requiring a castle. Against onagers, for example, they just act like a weaker, shorter range archer. And maybe one of the big takeaways here is while they hold up to anything anti-archer that relies on pierce armor to fill that role, units that beat archers with high damage from range or an attack bonus are still felt at full force. You also have to keep in mind here the context of Armenians overall. They're largely pushed toward their extra durable infantry and warrior priests, making archer civs a pretty natural counter. I don't see the Composite Bowman doing a lot to help there, given its lower range, and as we've seen, it can have some trouble against even a generic crossbow line. On the flip side, I could see in team games, with a lot of units like Paladins or Eagles who usually rely on high pierce armor to be effective, this is a very dangerous support unit, doing up to the work of 8 times its number of arbalesters. That'll do it for this one though, and of course these are just my thoughts on the unit and what I found by testing it out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.